went to the craftsmen, according to their rank and office, in countless quantity from many races. And the third portion went to any foreigner who came from near or far and asked money from him. And even if they didn't ask, it says, to each one according to his station. And the second part that was marked out for God, he divided into 4. And the first part was to be expended judiciously on the poor of every race who came to him. And the second portion went to the 2 monasteries and the people within. The third part went to the school, with many nobles of his own race and boys not of noble birth. And the fourth part went to churches and monasteries. And some of those were in Wales, Cornwall, Gaul, Brittany, Northumbria, and sometimes even Ireland, it says here. Now, I don't think Ireland was part of his jurisdiction. I think that's why it says sometimes even Ireland. I think he was a king of Wales and Cornwall and Northumbria. And I know that Brittany, obviously, because that's where the term Brittany comes from, and he must have had part of Gaul as well. Now I've got a note here about the actual revenues, because I thought people might wonder where the money actually came from. So just let me find this.
Okay,
here you are. Here's from the notes. The king's revenues in the late 9th century would have been derived directly and indirectly from a variety of sources. For example, the annual food rents due from all folkland, which, though originally paid in kind, might by this time have been commuted for cash. The profits which accrued from the king's estates, for instance from the sale of excess produce, the proceeds of justice over folkland, the proceeds of justice derived from fines for particularly heinous crimes, which the king reserved to himself, the sale of brookland or of privileges over brookland, tolls on trade, the profits of coinage, tribute from Welsh rulers who had accepted the king's overlordship, and miscellaneous bequests from the king's subjects. A proportion of this income would naturally have been diverted in the king's service at a local level, but the rest would have come to his treasury. So there are some people that just gave him money anyway, just miscellaneous bequests from the king's subjects, and also the profits of coinage. So the king was making the money from the banking and using it for the people. He was distributing it out amongst the people. Okay, that's most of the notes I've got today. Here's another bit. There's a legend that I'm not sure if it's true or not, but King Alfred had 44 judges hanged in 1 year for their false judgments. It's from.
Now there's something you don't hear every day.
I'll finish reading his life, and then I've got some information about the laws here that I've taken some notes on, because that's more to do with the laws really, and his zeal for justice. Okay, let me find the page that we were at. Excuse me, just let me have a drink of water here a minute.
Sure, enjoy yourself. Quench that, moisten those vocal cords.
Yeah.
You've been going for a while there. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's only 2 pages that we have to go through here. It's just describing about his bone lantern that he made, and it's pretty much accepted that he did actually invent the bone lantern, which was made out of ox horn, and he got it shaved down so it was really thin, so that the wind wouldn't blow the candles out or make the candles burn too fast. And this was so that he could split the day exactly in half, so that he could divert half his time to God. Okay, when these arrangements had been properly carried out in every respect, he was eager to observe the half of his service, just as he had promised to God, and even to increase it, insofar as his means and abilities, and of course his health, would allow. He was a painstaking judge in establishing the truth in judicial hearings, and this most of all in cases concerning the care of the poor, on whose behalf he was wonderfully solicitous day and night amid all the other obligations of this present life. Throughout the entire kingdom, the poor had either very few supporters or else none at all, except for the king himself. Not surprisingly, since nearly all the magnates and nobles of that land had devoted their attention more to worldly than to divine affairs. Indeed, everyone was more concerned with his own particular well-being in worldly matters than with the common good. King Alfred used also to sit at judicial hearings for the benefit both of his nobles and of the common people, since they frequently disagreed violently among themselves at assemblies of aldermen or reeves, to the point where virtually none of them could agree that any judgment reached by the aldermen or reeves in question was just. Under pressure of this intransigent and obdurate disagreement, the separate parties would undertake to submit to the king's judgment, a procedure which both parties quickly hastened to implement. However, if anyone considered that some injustice, as he saw it, might arise in the case, he would not willingly submit to the decision of such a judge, although by force and stipulation of the law he would be constrained to be present, even against his will, for he knew that none of his malice could remain there unexposed for long. Not surprisingly, since the king was an extremely astute investigator in judicial matters, as in everything else. He would carefully look into nearly all the judgments which were passed in his absence anywhere in his realm, to see whether they were just or unjust, and if he could identify any corruption in those judgments. He would ask the judges concerned politely, as is his wont, either in person or through one of his other trusted men, why they had passed so unfair a sentence, whether through ignorance or because of some other malpractice, that is to say, either for love or fear of the one party, or for hatred of the other, or even for the sake of a bribe. Accordingly, if the judges in question were to confess after all that they had indeed passed judgment in such a way because they had not known better in the circumstances, then the king, admonishing their inexperience and foolishness with discretion and restraint, would reply as follows: I am astonished at this arrogance of yours, since through God's authority and my own, you have enjoyed the office and status of wise men, yet you have neglected the study and application of wisdom. For that reason, I command you either to relinquish immediately the offices of worldly power that you possess, or else to apply yourselves much more attentively to the pursuit of wisdom. Having heard these words, the aldermen and reeves were terrified and chastened as if by the greatest of punishments, and they strove with every effort to apply themselves to learning what is just. As a result, nearly all the aldermen and reeves and thanes, who were illiterate from childhood, applied themselves in an amazing way to learning how to read, preferring rather to learn this unfamiliar discipline, no matter how laboriously, than to relinquish their offices of power. But if one of them, either because of his age or because of the unresponsive nature of his unpracticed intelligence, was unable to make progress in learning to read, the king commanded the man's son, if he had one, or some relative of his, or even, if he had no one else, a man of his own, whether free man or slave, whom he had caused to be taught to read long before, to read out books in English to him by day and night, or whenever he had the opportunity. Sighing greatly from the bottom of their hearts, these men regretted that they had not applied themselves to such pursuits in their youth, and considered the youth of the present day to be fortunate, who had the luck to be instructed in the liberal arts, but counted themselves unfortunate because they had not learned such things in their youth, nor even in their old age, even though they ardently wished that they had been able to do so. But I have explained this concern for learning how to read among the young and old in order to give some idea of the character of King Alfred. And that's where the life of King Alfred rather abruptly ends. So, it seems like there should be some more there, but he finished there for some reason. He was prevented from actually doing any more. But you can tell from that part that these lords or these thanes, they did have slaves. People did sell themselves into slavery, and they also had free men that were aligned to them. And it was beneficial to actually align yourself with the Lord, because the Lord would protect you. And if there was anyone attacked you, then, and you didn't have enough people to surround the guy's house and wait for him to come out, then the responsibility was on the Lord or the Thane to come and do that for you. Now I've got some parts on the laws here that he wrote, because he compended up he gathered together the previous laws from the previous kings and wrote them all down. so that there was a book of law so they could refer to previous judgments. And the laws themselves, it was all compensation, basically, compensation according to your station in life. You know, if you had a fight with someone and you chopped their arm off, you wouldn't be put in prison for it. You would have to pay the precise amount according to that person's station. And it was called Wergild. I think this is like the Brehon law, where that was based around compensation. If you didn't have, and they would have, and if you couldn't pay the money, then you would have to borrow it from the Lord, and then you would have to work for him to work it off. So this was another reason why you had these lords.
No, it sounds like it's like almost like an indentured servant.
Yeah, but only if you did. Yeah, you could pay that off, but I mean you'd have to pay the compensation. It was either that or you deserve to have your own arm chopped off. If you see what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what would happen is if something would say someone had attacked you and you believed that they were in the wrong, then they would besiege the home of the guy that had attacked you. If there are not enough resources to besiege the home, the alderman is to provide the resources. And there would be a 7-day siege, and then they must give up their weapons. And if they didn't give up the weapons, I suppose they'd go into the house after 7 days. They must give up their weapons, and then they'd be held for 30 days whilst their friends would be informed. Now, I think the reason why their friends would be informed was so that they could make up the jury, because it's a jury of 12 of your peers, and your peers are your friends. So the jury should be made up of friends of the guy who was being accused. And if you were fighting on behalf of a lord, or if a lord was fighting on behalf of you, then it does not incur a feud. Or if you were fighting on behalf of a kingsman, if attacked wrongfully. So, you were allowed to defend yourself. It was also not classed as a feud if a man was fighting with another man who'd been found with his lawful wife behind closed doors or under a blanket, or if it was a man with his daughter or his sister or his lawful mother. So it would be classed as a feud, which was breaking the peace if you attacked somebody. And if there had been a feud, then you would be taken to court. Your friends would be expected to be the jury and to decide whether you'd acted lawfully or not. If it was decided you'd acted unlawfully and there was damage done, you would have to pay compensation.
Yeah, it sounds to me like he's trying to give the defendant as much of an opportunity as possible to have a just and fair and just verdict. Anyone that would be, in favor of or advocating a jury of peers, that's remarkable. At that time, is remarkable.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, but please continue. Sorry for interrupting. Just a little comment there.
That's fine. I just, I'm just sort of reading from my notes now. And there was actually imprisoning, but the imprisoning was only for breaking a pledge or an oath. So the main people that could be imprisoned were the judges or the thanes or whoever had taken an oath and broke it. And it was a straight punishment. It was 40 days in prison, doing penance as the bishop prescribes. So you'd be put in the prison and you'd have to do what the bishop told you, whether that would be, silence for 40 days or only eat fish for 40 days or whatever. I'm not really sure on what these penances used to be. But the kinsman had to feed him. And if they had no kinsman, then the reeve was to feed him. And of course, if the reeve was caught not feeding him, then the reeve would be put in the prison for 40 days himself for breaking his oath to the king.